Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. As I told you in the past on my social media, this year I went back to eating meat and fish after 10 years of vegetarian diet without supplements, and I learned a lot about it. In the past I had a question on this channel about the carnivore diet, but since I lacked a lot of experience, I didn't feel authorized to talk about it. So I used that question in order to address the spiritual aspect of avoiding eating meat. I still cannot talk about the carnivore diet, but now I can share some of my experience about eating meat and about before and after. As in general, I still fail to see any reasons that make sense why I should exclude vegetables, for example. I can understand why people might exclude meat or carbs, why people exclude alcohol or pork, regardless of the validity of the justification, or whether it's religious or for health reasons, or perhaps conceptual, but at least there is an argument. But when it comes to the carnivore diet, I couldn't find any argument that can justify excluding vegetables, except if I'm in a situation where vegetables are not attainable. I know that many men who feel that their masculinity is in danger, so they might need to exaggerate with masculinity manifestos in the face of the vegan feminists. So they might choose the carnivore diet and even try to justify it scientifically. But such justifications are not good enough for me, and I need a reasonable justification in order to want to experiment with it, and I can't find one. Choosing it just in order to protest in the face of feminists is not a reason for me. And I even think that this way of thinking is childish and counterproductive. Like this, you just give them a reason to mock you, which makes you more of a Trojan horse to serve the agenda of their puppet masters. But this is a subject for another time. Anyway, as I mentioned previously, in 2012, I stopped eating meat and fish, not for ideological reasons, but for practical ones. I mentioned them in the past, in the video that I made before, and I mentioned that ideology didn't make sense to me, where some claim that eating meat violates the laws of nature, because from my point of view, I see that lions do eat meat, and some plants even do eat meat. Some animals eat plants. So I don't think anyone is in position to virtue signal creation for how things are created or should be modified. Those virtue signaling brats who think they are more moral and intelligent than the universal order can first find a job and stop parasiting upon the system or trying to find meaning for their lives by accusing others in order to feel good with themselves. I'm not in position here to argue with existence about the food chain or about the wisdom of natural survival. Therefore, my purpose was not ideological, but more experimental and physical. Especially that before I moved to Berlin, I lived in Tel Aviv, which is, let's say, a relatively strict culture of eating meat. Not legally strict, but morally. So I knew I could trust Muslims and Jews with it, or sell halal and kasher, because it is forbidden religiously to compromise meat for commercial purposes, and there are many rules to ensure the purity of the meat, like the sharpness of the blade, the health of the animal, etc. And those people have a strong conscience and commitment to guard their faith. My purpose was not religious, and for more about it you can watch the relevant video on this channel. Anyway, when I moved to Germany, I tried many things in the beginning, but I felt that there is something wrong with the meat, and since I didn't know people in Germany, I had to consume what is sold in the supermarkets. And there I felt that there's something wrong and that the commercial is above health. So I decided to become vegetarian for a while. And also, since I cannot prove the quality and the efficiency of supplements created by commercial corporations for commercial purposes, I have never consumed supplements as well. Anyway, in the first couple of years of vegetarianism, I felt something new. I felt lighter, less dependent. Somehow I had spiritual experiences that I could not explain without sounding crazy, like visions that carry messages and dreams, and even messages while being awake, and seeing things and communicating with things that cannot be explained rationally. That state was for me like living above earth. So I decided to stay there for more years. After some time, I started gaining weight, and I will explain more about it in the second part, where I talk mostly about my weight loss anyway. In spite of years of a natural vegetarian diet, yet carbs-based diet, my heart started skipping beats. I started experiencing kidney failure and many reactions that became too dangerous to live with. And I also started experiencing abnormal visions and spiritual and sexual conceptions that should not make sense to human beings. And that was not me as I knew myself. It was more that kind of hormones influence. It is important to say that I did not smoke, I did not drink alcohol, I did sport every day, I live in healthy relationships with no toxicities, I have not injected myself with any chemical substances, no pills, no vaccines, no nose tests, never wore masks that blocked my breath. Yet, in the last year of my vegetarian diet, I experienced system failures that did not make sense. So I started intensifying my physical activity. I've always worked out also before, but in the last 2 years or year and a half of my vegetarian diet, I started intensifying my physical activity to 1.5 hours daily. That included muscle work and aerobic exercise. But that got things even worse because I had to compensate for the loss of energy with dysfunctional consumption. Instead of nurturing myself with pure protein, I consumed more carbs and substances that encouraged estrogen. So after all that workout and the body failures, that was the moment, the last week of 2020, where I made my decision. After 10 years of being vegetarian, the adventure has come to an end. Now I'm going back to eating meat and fish. So I bought tuna fish cans and researched to find someone who was trustworthy where I can buy my meat from. And after I went back to eating meat, it was like magic. All my health failures got solved in a couple of weeks, and I could achieve physical activities with less effort. And now I'm ready to change my diet into something that can help me lose weight very quickly, and I will talk about it in more details in the next video.